All right, let's talk about this movie called Me Time. So basically, you got this guy by the name of Sonny. He's got two kids, got a wife. Now, his wife does like architecture for stuff, you know what I'm saying? Islands, boats, whatever. And Sonny's more like a stay at home dad, but he does a lot with like the PTAs, the community, all this stuff with schooling, helping out the kids. And he's got this longtime friend by the name of Huck. He's always doing like extravagant parties, just doing all types of mayhem. For like his 44th birthday, he was in like Tijuana and shit. He enjoys his life, but basically everybody feels like he's getting too involved with his kids. He's not really having any fun anymore. So he's involved with his son's like talent show thing. He wants him to play the piano. But his son loves watching comedy, but he doesn't want to disapprove his dad or whatever. The daughter just goes to school. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, she's part of the family, but she doesn't really have a story compared to this movie. But anyway. So basically while he's at the school, he talks to one of these guys named Alan. And he's basically convincing him to do some fun shit. It gets to a point where he's talking about the crossing guard lady. And Sonny always likes what she represents, but then Alan tells her, like, look, man, she's basically divorced from her husband. She don't get to see her kids like that anymore. And on top of that, crossing guard, that's not a real occupation. So Sonny starts feeling some type of way about this. Then later on, Sonny goes with his wife to this like banquet that he's supposed to be meeting up with like all types of people in her job or whatever. And she works with this dude named Armando who's like this visionary and whatnot. Sonny gets jealous because of how close he is to her or whatever. So that's that dynamic. So it gets to a point when they get home and she feels like she's not around the kids enough. So she's going to take a trip with the kids to their grandparents' house. Meanwhile, Sonny could get some well-deserved free time. I guess they're going to be gone for like a week or two. It took a little bit of convincing, but Sonny decides to go along with this. So the mom's packing the stuff. She almost forgets the EpiPen for his daughter. But Sonny made sure another one was already in the bag. The Epi thing is important. I'll tell you why in a minute. So basically they head out. Sonny's in the house by himself listening to Seal. If you don't know who Seal is, go look up the Batman Forever soundtrack. He's a singer. Anyway, he's doing all these things. He goes to this rib spot because, he's cheating on his diet or he's trying to eat all types of beef. Ends up throwing it up, though. He actually goes to a strip club, but the one stripper that meets up with him ends up being his babysitter. It's like, hey, Mr. Fisher, long time no see. You need me to babysit the kids? He's like, yeah, no, I'm good. He ends up playing these senior citizen ladies at golf and they end up cooking his ass. So this is quote-unquote exciting for him. Then he gets to the point where he's like, man, I gotta do some real shit. So he ends up calling Huck, finds out he's in California. He takes a trip out to California. On the corner, you see this flexed out boat. You see a bunch of people skinny dipping, and all of a sudden, Huck just pops up butt ass naked. I'm like, and if you didn't know by now, this movie has Kevin Hart and Mark Walhberg in it, so think of it what you will. So all of a sudden, you see this bus pulls up with like Huck's face on it and shit. Sonny's thinking to himself, I thought we was getting on the boat. So they're driving, but what Sonny doesn't know is they end up driving into the California desert. And like Huck is so upbeat and positive about everything. So let me break it down like this. Huck was always the type of guy doing crazy stuff, skydiving, getting shot out of cannons, all types of mayhem shit like that, right? But when they get to the desert, you realize that his style's been pretty downgraded over the years. So when they get in the desert, they got this statue erect of him in the sand. It's crazy. He spent like a certain amount of money on food, but then he pulls out this surprise for Sonny and he got all this equipment or whatever like that. And he's like, yeah, we're going to hunt for our food. So I guess the food they have there is just presentation. And he tells him like, look, man, I got to go to the bathroom. They got a bunch of buckets just sitting over there. He's like, yeah, man, be careful where you squat. There's rattlesnakes out there too. So he goes up to the top of this mountain to take a, deuce. And then this baby cub out of nowhere comes rubbing on his leg or whatever like that. He picks him up, whatever. Then we find this big ass mountain lion. That's his mom. So he throws the cub out the way like, man, fuck this shit. He starts balling down the daggone mountain. And the mountain lion ends up tearing into him, but not before he takes out an EpiPen and stabs it in his fucking neck. So the mountain lion's feeling sleepy and goes about his business. Meanwhile, they look at the back of his shirt and the mountain lion scratched the fuck out of his back. So now he's the big dog on campus. So he hasn't been able to get service like that with his phone. He's like, oh my God. So he has to go to another part of this mountain. And this is like later on they're having like a bonfire or whatnot. So he's talking to a wife. I can't remember her name right now. We're just going to call her Nikki. So basically while Nikki was talking to her parents, they obviously don't really rock with Sonny like that. Apparently a seaplane came out of nowhere and Armando stopped in. He wanted Nikki's advice and wants her to get another firm. But he wanted her advice on an island that he was about to buy. So the beans got spilled by the kids when Sonny was on the phone talking to Nikki. And he thinks Armando's trying to get at Nikki. So while he goes back and has this conversation with Huck, all of a sudden this dude comes up. Huck was supposed to be a surprise to Sonny, but it turns out it was a surprise for Huck. This guy named Stan Berman, he comes with his like lethal enforcer, this chick. And basically it turns out Huck actually owes $47,000 to this guy. So how did they find Huck? Apparently Sonny had posted a picture and Huck was behind him. Huck tells him he's going to pay him off in like a day or whatever. He's like, well, I'm going to need some collateral in the meantime, so I'm about to break off one of your fingers. But Sonny ends up taking a hit and she ends up smashing one of his fingers. And he's like, yeah, that's all good and dandy, whatever, but I got to burn this shit down too. So they burnt out his entire fucking camp. It's like, damn. So we find out Huck was trying to be his own agent and he used to work for this other spot, but he didn't really quit. He got fired. He doesn't really have anybody financing none of this shit. The only thing that wasn't burnt down to the ground were the oysters and all this like seafood stuff that was worth like 4 G's. How'd they miss that? I don't know. So basically, he's going to flip that and turn it into something else. They get this Uber with this chick, but the direction they're going is near Armando's house. So Sonny gets an idea. He's like, hey, turn off over here. So Armando has this tortoise that's just sitting outside the house. So they try to put him on the outside of the gate. Like, yeah, he's going to miss his tortoise. But then they were like, wait a minute, what if this tortoise crosses the highway or something like that? So they try to put him back. See, Sonny has a tortoise of his own, so he automatically understands turtle power. Anyway, then they go in his house, they start taking all his left shoes and tossing them. Sticks his spatula in his ass. Sonny takes a mediocre shit on his bed. They do all this crazy shit and then they're about to back out. They accidentally hit the tortoise. I'm like, oh no. So they got to take the tortoise to the vet, unknowing to them they were being recorded the entire thing with everything they were fucking doing. This guy's got money. You ain't think he had a camera in front of his house? They drop the tortoise off at the vet. They go about their business. They find out later on the tortoise is okay. Everything's all good. No animals were harmed in making this movie. So Huck is pretty scared he's going to have to leave the country because he knows he ain't going to be able to pay $47,000 by tomorrow. So Sonny's like, look, man, we're going to have a party at my house. Just get a couple people over here. You know what I'm saying? We're going to rock out. Turns out to be way more people than he expected. But Huck has one more surprise for him, and he brings out the legendary Seal. Because apparently that's Sonny's favorite artist, so there you go. He ends up doing a duet with him on stage. It's crazy. So Huck is thinking about the situation, and Sonny's like, look, man, you know what? I'll pay off your debt. Fuck it. You're my best friend. He's like, don't you got to talk to your wife, Nikki, about this? Sonny's like, look, man, I got this. Don't worry about it. So they call Steve Berman over. He sends over $47,000. There you go. Done deal. Steve Berman's bodyguard about to get it popping with Seal. She's like, shit, let's get it. The party's going on. All of a sudden, Nikki and the kids come home because they found out about the damn tortoise. Armando's tortoise. Then Huck is thinking both of them about the money, and Nikki's like, what money? And then Sonny tells her, Nikki's like, the fuck? Nah. She ends up dipping out with the kids to go back to the parents' house for a minute. Then he goes back inside with Huck, and then he's like, well, Huck, how'd you even get Seal to get over here? He's like, yeah, I owe him a favor. He usually doesn't do this stuff for about, at least $100,000. And he's like, the fuck? So I just paid off your debt and you just racked up twice as much? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? He's about to kick out Huck. All of a sudden, somebody runs into his van for no reason. I'm like, who the hell does this just hit his van? Literally tore up the back half of that shit. So we get this montage of Sonny trying to get himself straight. He ends up having to move out for a little bit and rolling one of the dudes that rock with Huck. Nikki realizing it's hard as hell to take care of the kids by herself. Huck is living with some younger dudes, and they make him think to himself like, man, I gotta do better than this shit, man. Sonny's getting ready for the talent show and whatnot, which his son really has not been practicing a lot like that for, but he's still gonna be the closer. Talent show comes up, his son's supposed to play, but he's messing up the song. And he just breaks down on stage like, look, I never wanted to play the piano. And then Sonny apologizes to his son, and he talks about all this other stuff he's been doing within the past week. Parents are laughing at him. It's hilarious. Sonny and Nikki later on get back on track. Later on, Sonny talks to the traffic instructor for the school. We find out that she's been married for 35 years with her kids doing just fine. They've never been divorced. Alan basically lied to Sonny so he could just go out and have fun. There was this one funny scene when they had the party where Alan showed up, and everybody thought he was doing cocaine over there. He was like, no, this is my son's ADHD medication. I'm like, the fuck? Alan was hilarious. Anyway, most of that gets back on track. We found out Huck actually gave the $47,000 back. He's like, Sonny's like, what the fuck is going on? He tracks his call and he's at the marina. So when Huck told him about Stan Berman before, he was saying like, this dude, like, he likes buries bodies and throw them in the marina, right? So Sonny's thinking to himself, oh shit, I gotta go save my man Huck. He ends up going there with the same Uber lady or whatever like that. And she's talking about, yeah, I got nunchucks, I got throwing stars, all type of shit. So they go there, they're sneaking around, they find out that Huck is actually there, but he's making smoothies. We're like, what the hell's he doing? So Huck is like, look, man, I'm gonna just pay off my debts. I'm gonna end up going to Yemen and just working for him. Bottom line is that's how it's going down. But Sonny's thinking to himself like, nigga, you don't want to go to Yemen. So I guess they get some type of plan together so they could work off his debts or some way, somehow, whatever like that. Because at first he was thinking about not paying it off and just escaping the country. So I don't know how he even attempted to pay this off, but bottom line is they're working together. That's pretty much the end of the movie. I say go watch it for yourself. It's kind of funny. I mean, it's Kevin Hart and Mark Walhberg, so, take what you will from it. Me time, nigga. Yeah.